Do you know Will Storr?
Of course. He's been on my show. I went for breakfast with him yesterday.
He's great. And
he's fantastic.
Of course you know him. Will Storr, who wrote that book, The Status Game, was explaining all this and how what people are doing, what they're actually doing.
He's outstanding. So
good. It relates it to so many behavior patterns in life. It's just like, oh my God, this all makes sense.
He's a legend of storytelling. He's one of the best writers in the UK. And there's this really interesting example of my friend Mary Harrington talks about how the death of chivalry has caused an increase in domestic violence. So it's very interesting. So this is a good example of this luxury beliefs thing. So yes, during the 1960s and 70s, if you were an upper-class lady and the guys that you were dating were from households that had two parents that had taught them how you're supposed to treat people and they weren't mistreated and all the rest of it, they grew up like a well-balanced person. To them, it might seem a little bit patronizing for the guy to hold the door for you, right? Or to pull the chair out, or to make sure that you get home okay.
Yeah.
Because you live an existence in which the danger of that not happening, not going appropriately, isn't that great. Now, what wasn't understood by a lot of the upper-class feminists that were talking about this derogation of chivalry that they wanted was that that doesn't necessarily work for the working class or the underclass woman who is dating a man whose father beat him, or stepfather beat him, or didn't have a father, or was homeless, or addicted to drugs, or in violent crime. And she thinks it's a direct line, a single spectrum from you should hold the door open for women to you shouldn't beat your wife. And I think that it's true. Women should be seen as something that requires additional protection, that are precious and should be respected. If you derogate the stuff up here, sure, maybe it means that you liberate some of the upper class women to be able to go and do whatever they want. But what does this cause downstream when you don't have those guardrails in place for the men that the lower class women are dating?
Yeah, well, just all men, period. And it should be, and it's, here's the thing, that this is how it's looked upon in the martial arts world. If I know that I can fuck you up, and I fuck you up, I'm probably a bad person. It's never good that a guy who is like some trained killer goes after some regular guy, picks a fight with him and fucks him up. It's never thought of as good. It's always negative, like almost entirely negative. Like the entire fan base will recognize that terrible behavior. So if you're a man and you have someone who is your wife and she's smaller than you and female, you have the craziest advantage physically. It's the most awful tyranny physically if violence is involved. If you decide that you're going to start swinging and teaching people lessons and then lying to police about how someone got hurt and, oh, she fell down the stairs. And if you grow up seeing that, that's even maybe more fucked up. Because that's your model for what, and that's probably what their model was when they were growing up. But it's, as men, we have to look at that as the weakest of most disgusting behaviors, including beating up on people that are weak.
Well, that's the reason for the male monkey dance, as it's called. The reason for that is that it's rivalry between two potentially matched males, and we don't know who's going to win.
Yeah.
That's the reason for the conflict. If there's a huge disparity, what's the point for the conflict? You already know who's going to win, right? That's why beating up a 70-year-old guy or a 10-year-old boy isn't a big deal. But if you're a 21-year-old dude that's about this is exactly why you have weight classes, right? It's to create this degree of intrigue and fairness in the rivalry.
100%. 100%. Yeah, if a heavyweight beat up on a bantamweight, everyone would be furious. But that's what like a lot of men are and a lot of women are. It's crazy. If that happened in the male martial arts world, people would be furious. It's just fucking, it's horrible. And it's weird that it's always been a part of like cinema. There's always been scenes like James Cagney smacks a girl in the face. And there was one, God, I wish I could remember the movie. It was so crazy. But it was like a 1950s movie and the dad was spanking the wife, spanking her, like had her over his knee. And the young girl was saying that that's how he shows mommy that he loves her. God, you remember that movie, Jamie? I know we played it. It was insane. It was like this insane scene from a movie where you're like, what?
What the fuck am I watching?
But it's a time capsule into this evolving understanding of how human beings interact with each other. That's what it is. And it's a time capsule from less than 100 years ago.
What was that super famous...
Is this Shirley Temple?
Yes, it's Shirley Temple. That's what it is. Bro?
Thanks, Mama.
You're darn tootin' I did.
That means you love her.
That's what I've been trying to tell her.
Oh my God.
Dude, you darn tootin'.
Darn tootin' I am.
The guy's got
Over
someone's
his knee.
daughter over his knee, and he's spanking her into submission. Spanking her.
That'll
holding
teach
her.
her.
And spanking her. That means you love her, Shirley Temple says. Shirley Temple was like the propagandist. She was like a young
I
propagandist.
can't tell if that's actually her. I'm trying to type it in, and it's not.
It's not her?
It's her, so it might be someone else.
How many of them were there? How many of them young, famous girl actors were there? How many of them came out great? Zero?
It's a mixed bag. Britney Spears is a work in progress.
I do not think children should be developing in front of the world. I think that's an insane amount of pressure. I think becoming famous in front of the world is an insane amount of pressure. Becoming a child and as you're growing up, you're in front of the world. That's not manageable. Like no one's designed like that. You're going to blow the hardware.
I had this idea about, we always hear the problems of child stars. Macaulay Culkin, Britney Spears, too much fame, too young. And I don't disagree that thinking about, oh my God, this person's basically never known the world without adoration and attention and focus and scrutiny and all that stuff.
Right.
But there's a really interesting question about what happens if you're a, let's say, for example, Canadian psychologist who's been working away in the dusty annals of some university for a while.
Well,
and out of nowhere, you get thrust into the limelight, and then this bald MMA commentator plucks you out of obscurity, and now you're one of the most talked about people on the planet.
yeah.
The interesting thing here is, as the child, yes, you didn't know what the world was like before. I understand that can be disquieting. But what about when you had a sense of self?
Right.
What about when you thought you knew who you were and your place in the world and your place in the status hierarchy, as Will would say?
Yeah.
What about that? And then you just get ripped from your moorings and you're just out in space and the ISS is going past you and you're...
You're certainly going to make some mistakes. There's no way around it. You've never managed those waters before. If you just get in a raft for the first time and you're going down white waters to navigate, you're probably going to fall in. Like, you're probably not good at this.
If
You
the
don't know how
acceleration
to
is
do
quick
that.
as well.
Yeah, if you're in a kayak and you're hitting rocks, you're probably going to fall in. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. But once you figure out what you're doing, then you can kind of achieve some sort of level of balance. But for him, I think a lot of it was